We've been doing all this work in our views in preparation for placing these views onto our sheets. And right now we need to start considering which view do we want to place on which sheet. Right now we happen to have two different sheets that are set up. One is a plans sheet and the other is sections. So let's go ahead and take a look at the plan sheet first, which is this S.101. If you're not already in that view, go ahead and double click on that. And we're going to put the first floor onto this view. So go ahead and click on first floor. Now left click on it and hold your mouse button down and just drag over in this direction. As soon as your mouse is just somewhere over here in the space, go ahead and just let go of your mouse button and you'll see this rectangular shape show up. Now, I do want to place this view just the way that it is by default, at least as of this moment. But one thing I want to point out before I click is that if we needed to rotate this view around, perhaps a 90-degree angle, we could change that here on rotation on sheet. We don't need to, so we're just going to leave this at none. And where do we want to place it? I usually like to place it a little bit away from where the binding of the set's going to be at, so I'm just going to move it over a touch and click right about here. Now we can see it's up here, kind of in the corner, and if we zoom down, we can see that it's 1. So detail number 1 first floor. And that happens to match up with the name of the plan underneath the project browser. It also has the scale that's associated with this. If for some reason we wanted to give this a different name, we could. We could either rename it over here underneath the project browser, or I just want to point out that if we select on this, it never gives us the ability to double click on it, like maybe our dimensions or some of the other things would have allowed us to click on it to make a potential edit. In order to be able to do it here, all we have to do is zoom out just a little bit, move our mouse up, and as soon as the view that we just placed, so not the title, but the view highlights, then we can click on the view, and you'll notice that if we click down here or here, then we could end up changing either the number or the actual name of that particular view. The scale itself, well, that's going to be controlled through whatever the scale is associated with this view. And when I say that, of course, I mean back in the project browser, this says 1/8 inch equals a foot. So on our plan, it shows up as being 1/8 inch equals a foot. Now, if we go ahead and zoom out here, one of the things that I'm noticing is that this has a nice big, I'll call it a border showing up around it. Maybe for some reason, and I don't know why, but maybe for some reason we didn't want to see our elevation tags. Well, one of the things that we could do is we could go ahead and modify this view while it's on the sheet. So go ahead and just select on the view itself. Then there's going to be an option up here at the top of the screen called Activate View. If you click on Activate View, now it's just like drawing inside of the original drawing. Over here, it'd be 1 first floor. So if we decided, all right, we want to be able to make a modification so we don't see any of these elevation tags, we could either A, hide the elevation tags themselves, or B, we could come down here next to the little eyeglasses down at the bottom of the screen and click on Show Crop Region. When you do that, you'll see a box that shows up around your view. And then if you click on that box and then hold down on the little grips that are around the middle of them, you can pull this box up and anything that is not inside of the box is then going to get hidden. It's going to get cropped out. That's the reason why it happens to be called a crop region. Then if we have it the way that we like it, we can move back down here again and we can turn off or hide the crop region. And now we can no longer see those extra little elevation tags in this case on the outside. But this would have worked with other kinds of objects as well. I'm looking at this and thinking, well, this floor plan looks kind of small on this particular sheet. Maybe we need to be able to adjust the scale of it, the size of it. Well, we can do that too now that we're in this view. So we can click on where it has 1/8, and let's go ahead and try to make this a little bit bigger. Let's try to make it 1/4 inch equals a foot. That'll probably fill up the sheet pretty nicely and make it very easy to read. Now, something that I've seen people try to do is try to move the view at this point, and that's not a good thing because you're actually going to accidentally make a mistake on your model. You might rip your model apart. What you need to do at this point is go back to your sheet view. Now, I know it looks like we're on the sheet, but actually we've activated I'll use the term viewport on the sheet, and that's what we're currently working in. To go back to the sheet itself, all we have to do is right-click somewhere in the space and go to deactivate the view. As soon as we do that, we're now back in our drawing area. If we move over the view, we can see the whole box again. Now, if we select on the view, click and hold down, we can then drag this to a more appropriate location. And then I'm just going to click off of it. And now we can see how this is now centered much better onto our sheet. Now, one bad thing that just happened to us is that our view title just came off the sheet because it was so separated from the rest of the view. That's not a very difficult thing to fix. All we have to do is select on the title, hold down our mouse button, and then just drag it back up to wherever it is we'd like it to be at. One other thing, and it's just like if we had to make a modification to the piece of text, if we wanted to be able to adjust the length of this line that's associated with the view, we can. But we can't do it by just clicking on this particular line. We have to once again click on the view itself and then hold down the mouse button where you get that little grip at the end and either pull it back or pull it forward in order to be able to make that adjustment. Now, I realize in the case of a first floor, we're always going to want to have a title. But if this was some other kind of detail, or maybe it was a piece of cover art or something we wanted to place on the sheet to make it look pretty, something that didn't need to have the title, it is possible to get rid of these titles, but you can't do it using the delete key. What you have to do if you want to be able to make a modification to the title that shows up there is select on the view itself, and then underneath the properties of the view, over here on the left-hand side, you can change this so it says no title. And by doing that, it'll automatically remove the title. If you come back up here again and tell it to put the title in, the title will come back and it'll be in the same relationship as it was before. Now, I'll give you a real quick story as to why you want to go about this method. If you decide to select on the view and you didn't change it up here, and instead you went into Edit Type, and you told the title not to be on, changes from being yes to no, and I've seen many people do this over the years. One of the things that will happen is yes, the title will shut off, but it'll shut off everywhere throughout the entire set of drawings. So anything that was even supposed to have a title, it would shut off on. And obviously, you don't want to do that. So it's always best to be able to select it off of here and not come into this dialog box and changing this from being yes to no. Just leave it at being yes, and then you'll have the title. And if you don't want to have a title on your view, just change this to being no, and you won't have a title on your view anymore. Now, let's go ahead and go over to another sheet. So let's go to our section sheet now, and it's going to be down here at the bottom of the list. We can double click here at S.301, and let's go ahead and drag a couple of our section views onto the sheet. So we're going to drag section 1 and section 2 on over. So grab section 1, pull it over. It's looking pretty small here. We can always adjust the scale of it. Do the same thing with section 2. Pull it over, place it over here on your sheet. This is looking pretty puny, so I'm just going to increase it up to 1/4 inch. Now, one thing I'd said before is that we had activated the view and then changed the scale of it down here. I also want to point out the fact that you can also do that through the properties of the view over here. So once you have the view selected, you can actually go to the view scale and change that to be 1/4 inch from right here. By doing that, we can see how everything just got quite a bit larger. And we can click on this. We can drag the view to wherever we would need it to be, as well as the title. Now, if we want to be able to center these a little bit better on a sheet, I do want to point out there is a tool that's associated with being able to do that as well. And we can find that, once again, underneath the view up here. And it's this thing that looks like a bunch of just sort of dashed lines crossing each other, and it's called the guide grid. And if you click on guide grid, it's going to ask you to create one. Just click OK to that. And this will automatically give you a nice little grid that you can start to eyeball your drawing set with. And if you zoom in, select on your view, use the move tool, you can then grab on the different parts of your view and then be able to just sort of move them up and then snap them to proper locations. And you could do this with any view throughout your particular sheet. And as a result of that, and using your guide grid, you can quickly grab on the stuff, use the move command, move stuff, and then place them at the right intersections so that you know that if you're flipping through your set, everything is going to be lined up appropriately to everything else. And if for some reason you don't want to see this guide grid, you can always select on it again and then hit the delete key on the keyboard and it'll get rid of it for you. So to put sheets in our view, all we need to do is click and drag them to the appropriate locations onto our sheet. Also remember, if you ever need to be able to make changes to such things as the title on its locations, all you have to do is select on the title, click, and drag it to its appropriate location.